Well, that was not great, but from an All Blacks perspective, why would they care? They cruise into the final of the World Cup, seeing off Argentina here at the Stade de France. So that's what I'm getting into in this video. A few different things to get into, but it was a strange atmosphere in there. It was flat. As I say, the All Blacks won't care, and why should they? But let me know what you made of it. If you're an All Blacks fan, I would imagine you're absolutely delighted, but everyone else as well, if you're a neutral, give me your thoughts in the comments section, like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. And I suppose the first thing to say is there was naturally a drop-off in intensity from the game that we saw New Zealand play here a week ago, which was always going to be the case. In the first 2 minutes, I thought it was quite evident, really, that there was that different level of intensity, but New Zealand still had enough quality to get the job done. And they were pretty clinical, I thought, when they got into the 22. They took their opportunities quite well. And around the 16-minute mark, I thought that was summed up quite nicely. And I'm going to get into Argentina in a bit more detail in a second, because they'll be disappointed with a lot of what they showed in that game. But around the 16-minute mark, I think Argentina had 2 attacks in or around close to the All Blacks 22, which had gone over 10 phases, and they came away with 3 points. New Zealand had 2 attacks of their own and then scored 2 tries. And at that point in the game, you just felt like that maybe told the tale. Argentina were going to give it a good go. They started the game pretty well and on the front foot and got themselves that 3-point lead. But were they going to have enough to ultimately win the game? We always thought it was unlikely, and it was the quality of the All Blacks that shone through early on in the game and throughout, and that's why we got such a one-sided scoreline. And I suppose from a New Zealand point of view, it is a case of they have done what they needed to do. Backing it up was always going to be difficult. You could almost argue impossible to get to the levels in terms of intensity, mentally, physically, where they had to go against Ireland to win that game. It was always going to be incredibly difficult for them to get back there. But as I say, I think they still applied themselves in some of those key moments in the game. They had the quality, they could turn the switch, and they were able to put points on the board and never really let Argentina into it after they took that 3-0 lead. And then that Shannon Frizzell try on half-time, which took the New Zealand score on to 20. Argentina at that point was it on 6? They were still on, yeah, they were on 6 at that point. It was always going to be really tough after half-time and that score. Let's get on to the Pumas though. As I say, they started okay. Their ball retention was really good, but they'll be pretty disappointed, won't they? I think it was encapsulated the best after half-time, so they're down 20 points to 6 at half-time. Whatever they're saying in the sheds is, okay, we've got to start well. What's our game plan here? We're receiving the kickoff. What's our exit strategy? Well, New Zealand kick off and Argentina drop the ball straight away. It leads to a scrum and New Zealand score. And it was just moments like that I thought we maybe saw the Pumas revert to some of what we saw against England, where they weren't really able to build pressure after that first kind of 10-15 minutes or so. They were a bit sloppy in possession. They knocked the ball on. Their retention of it was poor. And New Zealand, when you give a team like with the quality of the All Blacks those sorts of opportunities, then they're always going to be able to capitalise on them. In particular, I think for Argentina at this World Cup, how do they assess it? I mean, a great win against Wales. Poor in the pool stages, but they came through in second place. And even though we know that the All Blacks have more quality, they'll still be pretty disappointed with their showing here. I would just wonder how Michael Cheika will reflect on this World Cup as a whole. I don't know, you can let me know in the comments. I just wanted to quickly mention the officiating. When you scroll through social media, everyone seemed to be saying that the referee was having a stinker, and I think it's probably fair to say it wasn't his best game, but I would also counter that it's not the reason New Zealand won the game, and it's not the reason Argentina lost the game either. And maybe I'm alone in this, but we seem to be obsessed with criticising officials and micro-analysing all of their decisions. I'm not going to say too much more on it. I'm sure many of you will disagree with me in the comments, but I just feel like we're in a strange space at the moment in terms of how we look at the role of the officials and what they're doing. That was just my thoughts on it. I thought it had no bearing on the final result of the game. But as I said, it was a strange atmosphere. It was a strange atmosphere in the build-up. I arrived here a couple of hours before kick-off, and it was all a little bit flat, certainly compared to last weekend and also compared to other stadiums and other cities, other venues that I've seen at this World Cup. and I don't know why that was. The Argentinian fans on the whole have been absolutely brilliant through the tournament. When I saw them in Marseille on the opening weekend for the England game, they were sensational, even though their team put in a pretty poor performance, and they were excellent, from what I'm told, in Marseille last weekend for that quarter-final. So it was a flat atmosphere in the game, and it was a flat atmosphere outside the stadium, and I think it was kind of a reflection of the match we saw. There was just a little lack of energy in the occasion, and I know plenty of people will say, well, this is the problem with the World Cup draw, and that's been a well-trodden path already. We know the draw shouldn't have happened the way it was. What I would say is, we got 4 unbelievable quarterfinals last weekend, and okay, we might have 2 pretty poor semi-finals, but I don't know, I'm not sure I would give up what we witnessed and what we were able to enjoy last weekend for this weekend. And it will never happen again anyway. It's not entirely fair. They will correct that. So we can kind of just move on. I don't necessarily feel like it should be a huge talking point after this game. We'll see what England and South Africa serve up tomorrow night. Maybe everyone will feel different about it after that. Let's get into a couple of individual players though. First of all, Will Jordan, 8 tries for him, which means he's equalled the World Cup record held by Jonah Lomu, Brian Habana, and Julian Sarvea. He's been sensational through the tournament, and he'll try and break that record in the final. I mean, he's one of the best wings in the world, and on the biggest stage, he's continuing to prove why. But there are quite a few guys actually in that All Blacks backline that I wanted to highlight. Richie Mwanga, who is steadily and slowly possibly becoming the best fly half in the world. I know that that's up for debate, but he is absolutely brilliant, and a massive reason why this backline is so dangerous when they do get forward momentum and when they do start to find holes in those teams. He was excellent here again today. He's got a good kicking game. I've been really, really impressed with him the last few weeks. Also, Geordie Barrett, not just for what he does in attack, but his defence. I mean, the hit he put in at the end of the game was absolutely unbelievable, and the amount of tackles that he gets through in the game for an inside centre is ridiculous. His workload is sensational, and again, he kind of epitomises what's really good about this New Zealand team at the moment. I mentioned the 2 attacks early on in the game that Argentina had, 10 plus phases, in and around the New Zealand 22, and the New Zealand defence looked really, really good, really solid, as it did last week. I think that is an area that they've massively improved over the last few months. And then I just wanted a final word on Sam Whitelock, the first male player to reach 3 Rugby World Cup finals. He will be there again on the biggest stage next weekend here at the Stade de France. Unbelievable career, over 150 test appearances, and no doubt he'll have a pretty key role to play whoever they face, whether it be England or South Africa next weekend. Those are my kind of general thoughts on the game. As I say, a drop-off in intensity. New Zealand did what they needed to do. They showed the quality they have, and in the end, they'll be delighted with how they saw out the game. And actually, the match, in a way, from an Argentinian point of view, was probably epitomised by what we saw at the end. They have a penalty, clock in the red, and they miss-touch. Mwanga catches it, kicks it out, game done. In a weird way, that kind of sums it up a little bit from an Argentinian point of view. How will the Pumas reflect on this World Cup? And New Zealand fans, how are you feeling now ahead of your team being in another World Cup final, heading for their 4th title, or aiming, I should say, for their 4th title? I look forward to reading your comments. Put them down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.